What's up, y'all? It's Evan. I'm back with another video. First things first, I gotta remind you that you are literally God. You are source. You are all that is. Nothing can stop you from experiencing whatever you desire to experience except for you, okay? So whatever you've been saying is keeping you trapped, keeping you stuck. If you've been saying something is hard, just let go of everything that you've been accepting that says, I'm not there or I can't experience this, and you will experience it, okay? It's raining a little bit. It just started raining, which is crazy. But I want to continue where I left off in the They Brainwashed You video. And let's keep reading this Neville Goddard, okay? So he says, man who is free in his choice acts from conceptions which he freely, though not always, always wisely chooses. All conceivable states are awaiting our choice and occupancy, but no amount of rationalizing will of itself yield us the state of consciousness which is only worth having. No amount of trying to rationalize why you need what you want or rationalize how this is going to work is going to get you what you want, because the imaginative image is the only thing to seek. As soon as you put yourself in that state, in that reality within, that is all you need to do. Once you reach that state within, once you get to that imaginative image, y'all, there are carts, Target carts, shopping carts blowing in the wind. Oh my, I have to show y'all this. That is so crazy. I'm sorry, I'm super distracted. And this y'all, the way I set this phone up is so crazy. Okay, let's lock in. The imaginative image is the only thing to seek. Once you reach that imaginative image and you begin to hold it, you have no choice but to experience it, because reality aligns in a way that forces you to experience it. The ultimate purpose of imagination is to create in us the spirit of Jesus, which is continual forgiveness of sin, continual identification of man with his ideal. Only by identifying ourselves with our aim can we forgive ourselves for having missed it. All else is labor in vain. On this path to whatever place or state we convey our imagination to, that place or state we will gravitate physically also, okay? Then he included a scripture. He said, in my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. I go to prepare a place for you, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive unto myself, that where I am, that there ye may also be. Okay, wherever your consciousness is, you may also be there. The many mansions in your mind are the states of beings that you can embody. All right, so the moment you embody that state of being, the moment you pick your mansion, the moment you sleep in your mansion, you imagine yourself in that desired state, that is when you begin to see it in your reality, because that where I am, there ye may be also. Okay, Jesus is consciousness. That's what it's meant to represent when you are reading scripture and interpreting it metaphysically. All right, that's just how I interpret it. You don't have to interpret it that way, and if that don't align with you, don't watch this video. Okay, but by sleeping in my Father's house in my imagination, as though I slept there in the flesh, I fused my imagination with the state and was compelled to experience that state in the flesh also. Okay, so vivid was that state to me, I could have been seen in my Father's house had any sensitive entered the room where in imagination I was sleeping. A man can be seen where in imagination he is, for a man must be where his imagination is. So when he's talking about sleeping in the house, this was when he was doing his imaginal act where he manifested being in Barbados. So he was going to sleep imagining himself in the bed he would have been in if he was at his father's house in Barbados. And then boom, that's when his brother sent him a ticket and was like, hey, look, I want you to be in Barbados. I'm going to make sure you get there in manifestation done, right? But he said it was so vivid to him to where he feels like it was so vivid to where if somebody had walked in the room at that moment, they would have felt his presence. That's how deeply and more connected he was to that imaginal act he was doing. All right. So it says, a man can be seen where imagination. This I know from experience, for I have been seen by a few to whom I desired to be seen. When physically I was hundreds of miles away, I, by the intensity of my imagination and feeling, imagining Imagining and feeling myself to be in Barbados instead of merely thinking of Barbados had spanned the vast Atlantic to influence my brother into desiring my presence to complete the family circle at Christmas. Thinking from the end, from the feeling of the wish fulfilled, was the source of everything that happened as outer cause, such as my brother's impulse to send me a steamship ticket, and it was also the cause of everything that had appeared as results. In Ideas of Good and Evil, Y.B. Yeats, having described a few experiences similar to this experience of mine, writes, if all who have described events like this have not dreamed, we should rewrite our histories for all men. Certainly, all imaginative men must be forever casting forth enchantments, glamour, illusions, and all men, especially tranquil men, who have no power, egotistic life, must be continually passing under their power. So just letting their power rule their reality and just letting their mind create whatever it wants and blaming the outer circumstances. But this is exactly what I was talking about. He did the imaginal act. He ended up in Barbados. Everything worked out for him but all he had to do was think from the end. All right. And then everything came from that. His brother sent him a ticket. He was there and all of that stuff. Okay. But he was basically saying he's basically explaining how all of our consciousness are connected. Because literally all he had to do was do that act, imaginal act. He's not trying to imagine, oh, hopefully my brother comes and he gives me a ticket. No, you don't need to figure out how you're going to get there. All he had to do was imagine that. And automatically his brother's like, let me buy him a ticket and get him out here. Okay, so remember that. Don't worry about the how. The how takes care of itself the moment you surrender to the imaginal act. You put yourself in that state and allow everything to fall into place, because it's not your job to figure it out. Okay? I would like to give you an immense belief in miracles, but a miracle is only the name given by those who have no knowledge of the power and function. All right, this is the same thing when people say, oh, you got lucky, or you did it, this happened because of that, or because of that. They don't understand the power of your consciousness, the power of your awareness to choose your reality. They don't understand that. So all they see is the outside, or they call it luck, or they call it a miracle. Okay? I'm sure y'all get that though. But a miracle is only the name given to those who have no knowledge of the power and function of imagination. To the works of imagination, imagining oneself into the feeling of the wish fulfilled is the means by which a new state is entered. This gives the state the quality of isness. Hermes tells us that which is manifested. That which has been or shall be is unmanifested, but not dead. For soul, the eternal activity of God, animates all things. Soul, the eternal activity of God, animates all things. I love that Hermes said this. I'm guessing he got this from the Hermetica, but because we think that our brains are creating all these things, but our awareness comes before the brain. Consciousness comes before the brain. We may not remember it, or we may not know, after we die for sure, but you see near-death experiences. You see people leaving their bodies. Like, you see outer body experiences where people are literally dying. They're looking at themselves, or they're getting like their life review, all of these different things, and we see consciousness passes on. So if consciousness passes on, that means consciousness isn't actually who we are. We can see the thoughts. We can see the beliefs. We can see our reality. We can interact with our bodies, all of these different things. So just know that your soul is creating your reality. You have dominion over everything, including your thoughts. That's how you create your reality, okay? Did I skip this? He says, the future must become the present in the imagination of the one who would wisely and consciously create circumstances. We must translate vision into being, thinking of into thinking form. Thinking of into thinking from. I said form. Thinking of into thinking from. So instead of thinking of what you desire, think from your desire. That's how you create it. Okay. You don't necessarily have to do that though. Just make sure it's always in your awareness and you're choosing your reality. Because Neville Goddard, he leans more towards the area of imagination. He's like, you need to imagine it. Imagine, yes, imagine it 1000%. But as long as you're choosing, because remember, your mind isn't creating your reality. It is you. It is your awareness. It is what lives beyond the mind that is creating it. You have to accept ideas, thoughts, beliefs, and consciously decide to imagine these things. Accept those imaginations as true for you to experience it, okay? Imagination must center itself in some state and view the world from that state. Thinking from the end is an intense perception of the world, a fulfilled desire. Thinking from the state desired is creative living. Ignorance of the ability to think from the end is bondage. It is the root of all bondage with which man is bound. To passively surrender to the evidence of senses underestimates the capacities of the inner self. Okay? Passively surrender to circumstances, the evidence of the senses, the 3D, is to underestimate the capacities of your imagination, of consciousness. Once man accepts thinking from the end as a creative principle in which he can cooperate, then he is redeemed from the absurdity of ever attempting to achieve his objective by merely thinking of it. Construct all ends according to the pattern of fulfilled desire. The whole of life is just the appeasement of hunger, and the infinite states of consciousness from which a man can view the world are purely a means of satisfying that hunger. The principle upon which each state is organized is some form of hunger to lift the passion for self-gratification to ever higher and higher levels of experience. The desire is the mainspring of the mental machinery. It is a blessed thing. It is a right and natural craving which has a state of consciousness as its right and natural satisfaction. Okay. Then he includes a scripture, Philippians. I think this is going to be the last thing I read. He says, "But one thing I do, forgetting the things which are behind and stretching forward to the things which are before, I press on toward the goal." Philippians 3:13 through 14. It is necessary to have an aim in life. Without an aim, we drift. "What wantest thou of me?" Luke 18:41 is the implied question asked most often by the central figure of the Gospels. In defining your aim, you must want it. Okay, I really love Neville Goddard because his techniques are the ones that worked for me the most. Just affirming, keeping myself in that state. While I always say, just you being able to choose is enough for you to experience what you want. If you can continuously place yourself in a state, it keeps the old you, it keeps the old reality from trying to come back in and pull you back down to where you were. It keeps your logical mind quiet. It keeps you from, because you're always seeing it in your mind, you have no choice but to believe you're experiencing it. And from that place, you manifest everything. And that's why I love Neville Goddard's teachings. That's why he is probably the main person that I look to when it comes to manifesting. But yeah, that was the last thing. That was the last thing I wanted to talk about. Just remember to continuously choose you, continue to accept ideas, because manifestation is so simple. I keep making videos though, because I feel like every time I make a new video, every time I come up with a new way to talk about it, or I do a new reading, it's like it gives somebody else a new way to connect with it. It gives a new perspective. It gives a new way to explain it. And somebody new gets it every single time. So that's why I'm going to keep going. But yeah, thank y'all so much for tuning in. Remember to only accept our thoughts, ideas, beliefs. Placing your awareness only things you want to experience, and you will experience them. I'll catch y'all tomorrow, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace out.